Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey folks, welcome to the webinar. There we go. I should be able to see my screen now. And thanks for joining us today. We are the so-called experts here, so we're here to basically take live fire questions from y'all. And we're going to do a little bit of a presentation here first, but really the brunt of this is going to be showing you how to use HOBOware. And I know some of you sent in some questions early, but yeah, we're just going to take questions here as we go. So before we dive into this, I just want to let you know that this is being recorded. The presentation will be sent out afterwards, so you'll be able to check this out again. Questions, please go ahead and type those in. You can feel free to start loading up questions now, and we'll just kind of pick them from the top as we go through here. Just a little bit about Onset. We've been in business since 1981. We develop and manufacture data loggers. We are a lean manufacturing company. Everything is built and engineered here in Bourne, Massachusetts on Cape Cod, and we are a ISO 9000 certified company. Mike here, who's joining me, he's been in our tech support department now 14, 15 years, and I'm sure many of you have talked to him on the phone. And myself, initially I was in sales for 12 or 13 years, and now been in product marketing and product management for the past 8 or 9 years. So you get some long-term veterans here. Just a little bit about HOBOware. This is our flagship software for Windows and Macintosh. There is a version that is available for free. It has a couple features that are stripped back, so we can touch on the differences there. But HOBOware Pro is available for $99, and once you've bought it, all the updates moving forward are free. So let me throw out a poll question here, and let me just fire this up. And basically, are you a current HOBOware user? Let me launch this for you. And we'll just take a couple seconds here if you want to go ahead and, oh good, looks like we got some newbies here too. So that's fantastic. Looks like the majority of you are users. I'll post this up in a second. Whoa, and a massive question from Jason. We'll take a look at that in a bit. Warren, you can download the free version off of our website, which is onsetcomp.com. That's ONSETCOMP.com. And if you go to the software section, you will be able to download that. So just taking a look, looks like we've got what, about 60, I can't see this, 64% of our folks on today have been using it, and the other folks are not or will be soon. There was a question that came in earlier as well. Where can I do self-learning options for HOBOware? So to plug our user forum and our self-guided trainings and the knowledge base, all of this stuff's available on our website. Oops, let me hide that so you can actually see that. Sorry about that. So all of these here, you can go to our website and check it out. The self-guided training, I know that we do have a bunch of tutorials for HOBOware as well as some of our other software platforms. And what I'll also say too is check out YouTube, because we've got a lot of the videos up there as well. And just to get a sense for where folks are monitoring, where do you monitor typically, whether that's indoors, outdoors, or underwater? And there's a couple different software features there depending upon what you're doing. As some of you may know, if you're doing underwater applications, there's things called data assistants that help with like the barometric compensation and correcting the DO loggers and things along those lines. So give it a couple more seconds here. Mike's itching to jump in, so we'll just get this going here. All right, we'll go ahead and close this, and I will share this. It looks like we've got half of you that are doing indoor applications, and then about 30% in outdoor and 15% in underwater. So we'll definitely be able to touch on a lot of the features here. And let's see what else we got here. Questions. So this is the fun part. Do you want to start? Or actually, hang on, I'll start. Let me just get out of this. All right. So one of the things that that came up actually earlier, there was a comment that we had gotten, and there's some subtle differences between HOBOware regular and HOBOware Pro, and some of that, the specific comment was we use something called bulk export, so you can grab a bunch of files and export those from the HOBOware file to like a XLS file. That's available in the Pro, but it's not available in the basic version. So one of the things that I do want to show you, and this is usually a good place to start, is preferences. Now, we hide a lot of things in here. First of all, I apologize. But what you'll want to do is go in and check some things out. And for those of you who may be using the basic software, the basic HOBOware, again, there's some functions in here where you can save this as XLSX file. You can break the date and timeout, so you can really kind of change your preferences here. But for those who might not have the Pro version, or even if you do, if you're really looking just to offload and then automatically get your data to an XLS file, go in and check this. So what will happen is the next time when you go to download a logger and save it, it is going to save both the .hobo file as well as the XLS file. So that's one time-saving features there that you may want to take a look at. But beyond that, make sure you check out a lot of the different preferences in here. When it comes to plotting, you can set your default rules. So let's say if you always want your CO2 to be plotted as a solid blue line, you can add this rule in here. You can change, this is another one that a lot of folks who are doing temperature and humidity, when you first see a graph like what I've got up here, it looks a little overwhelming because sometimes there's big spikes. But if you want to say, okay, every time that I go ahead and plot, let's say, what is relative humidity? Let's do temperature. So my scale is always going to be 0 to 100, let's say Fahrenheit. And then you can do the same for relative humidity. And it kind of normalizes things, RH. So we'll set that and then just hit add. So when we go to plot these things again, your scaling will automatically go 0 to 100. So again, these are some of the things that you'll want to take a look at in the preferences. Folks that may want to see the date and time in a different setting, definitely jump in and check all that stuff out. All right, let's see what we got here.
Hey Scott, while you're checking out that list, this is Mike from the support group. So I just wanted to go back into those preferences real quick. This might actually help a lot of folks. Some questions I think we've seen so far kind of touch on this, and it has to do with importing data back into the general preferences here. So again, File. We'll actually start over here so everybody can see it if you missed it. So File, Preferences, General, and then Exporting Settings. So one of the things, some folks, when they export data, they may be doing some manipulation outside of HOBOware to then bring it back in. One of the things you want to do, or the best practice, I would say, if you plan on importing data back in, is use this classic Export Settings button. This basically lines everything up so that it can be exported back in very easily. Then you can go ahead and do your manipulations outside, whatever you want to do there, bring it back in, and with minimal fuss with the import when bringing it back into HOBOware.
So one of the questions that we have here, currently downloading loggers on a monthly basis and building spreadsheets to average month-long and year-long averages of data. You've got loggers back to 1996. Thank you for being a longtime user, Jason. We appreciate it. Two dates. So basically, how do you do that between the two dates there? And there's a couple different ways you can do this here. The first is using the filters. I just have one file here, but you can come over and click on temperature, and then you can come up to edit into filter series. And at this point, you can do the min, max, or average, and you can do that for the month, and then you can have your start day on a particular, on a particular date. So, and these are some features that we've added in. These are some new features, I think, within the past 6 months to a year that we've added this in here. And then you hit OK, and you'll see this dotted line here. And what I can do is, if you right-click on the series here, you can do hide, and then I can hide the RH. And then what you'll see here is your monthly averages. So we don't have the ability to do a yearly average, but you can certainly do the monthly, the monthly. And as you probably saw there too, there are things to do for weekly, daily, hourly. The other way to get to that is if you click on one of the data sets and then you right click in here, this brings up a whole nother, and basically all of these features are underneath the edit tab, but you can get there a little quicker as well. And again, you can do min, max, and average, again, for the day, hour, minute, second, and then where you want your data point to start, and that's really for the monthly feature. But you can hit OK, and it will go ahead and do that for you. Now, let me see here. I'm going to touch on the merging in a little bit here. Oh, and Ginger, I just did 0 to, so a question came in, why did I set my default 0 to 100? I think a lot of times if you're used to using the old hydrothermographs, the kind of paper and pen thingy that spun around, it was just I believe the scale was always 0 to 100, so it just kind of normalized it. You can really kind of set it to really whatever you want. But you just know that option is there essentially. Is there a way to calculate median rather than average? There is not. We don't have a lot of capabilities in terms of calculating other things beyond that. Yeah, here, take that. does the basic software allow for the filtering? Yeah, let me pull that up since I mentioned the differences real quick. A lot of times it comes down to using the data assistance. And if we go to our software here, and I'll just come down to HOBOware. Oops. And the differences between the HOBOware and the HOBOware Pro, really it comes down to we've got some time-saving features which we can show you. The data assistance, which I'm going to have Mike kind of jump in and take you through a couple of the data assistants here in a moment. Being able to crop a series, the subset statistics tool, if you're using a data shuttle or if you're using the ZWs at all. So beyond that, as you can see, a lot of the base functionality is in the free software. So you can definitely take a look at that. So, but those are kind of the differences there. And for whoever, sorry, got off my screen there. Where's the updates? Is it down? So software updates are at the bottom of the page. For those of you who are looking for it, and actually just this week we released 3.7.18. So definitely make sure you stay up to date. A lot of times the updates now are mainly for new logger support, but we are trying to fix bugs as we go along, as well as stay up to date on the latest operating systems as sort of new versions of Mac and Windows comes out. But yeah, let me turn this over to Mike. And Mike, can you take us how going through the working with the water level logger and how to use the barometric compensation?
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let's go ahead and we're going to grab a couple files here. Let's see. All right, so bear with me one sec, guys. And U20. All right, so we're going to open up some U20 data files. I'm going to go ahead and we're basically going to process these. Let me just make sure I pick a good one here. Let's see. All right, let's go ahead and pick this one here. Go back into HOBOware. All right, here we go. Okay, so for most applications, we really want to stop to do the processing. And again, by the way, you do need HOBOware Pro to do this part. The data assistance, for the most part, you will need the Pro. There are a couple of exceptions there, but so here we're going to do the barometric compensation assistant. It's already highlighted here. You can go ahead and hit process, or you could double click, and that'll get you into the next screen. So now this is where you have to make some decisions about the deployment, whether or not you want to use reference levels, and also using a barometric data file. Definitely, we suggest using that. For here, so let's go back and start from the top. So fluid density, just for ease of use, we're not going to get into too much detail here, but just for this demo, we'll choose the derived from temp, assuming fresh water. We can go ahead and put a reference level. We'll just call it whatever that might be, 8 feet. Maybe it was a well and your water level at that moment was 8 feet. And let's go ahead and use a barometric data file. Click here. Go ahead and browse. Oh. Let's go back here. Sorry, guys. Sample data files. And U20. All right, so this one we've got labeled here as U20 barometric pressure. So this is the one we're going to use here. This data file was collected from another U20 data logger. This is probably your optimal setup when it comes to U20s. You've got an additional data logger deployed nearby in the air for barometric pressure. So this is your optimal setup. Let's go ahead, select that, open. So now we've got that reference here. So from, we'll back up to the reference level here. So what this does, this is actually telling you to choose a time or a data point as well to basically reference your measurement here. So for sake of this demo, we measured 8 feet. We can choose when we did that as well. So as long as that measurement is within the recorded data from this logger, we can use that. Usually it's never 0.1. Usually it's like 0.2 or 3 if it's in the beginning or something like that. So we'll go ahead and do that. So once we know we have this right, we can go ahead and hit create new series. And it looks like these do not over. So this file actually was not the same deployment. So that's this warning. It's a good thing that we actually warn you about that. So let's go ahead and see if we can find a different one. Sorry, guys. And U20. So water level HOBO. Yeah, that's cancel out of this. Or, yeah, go ahead. Okay, so we're actually going to restart this process. We had 2 examples here that were in this folder. Hold on one second. All right, so we'll cancel that. And 20. I think this is going to be a little bit easier for you guys to see now. Okay. All right, so we'll quickly do this one more time. Barometric pressure. Just to recap, so derived from temp, assuming fresh water. We'll use a reference level, and remember we chose that 8-foot mark. We'll choose that time right here. It's an old file. And barometric pressure. 20. And barometric pressure, here we go. So this should work. All right, there we go. Okay, so now notice we have a new channel here, water level. Also everything else that was logged here we have. But we're going to be only interested in, let's say, we'll get rid of that. We'll keep water level and temperature, and we'll go ahead and plot that. So now the new plot we have is the calculated water level, and that is basically based on our reference level. So the first was either the first or second point. I think the second point we used. So everything there is based on that 8-foot measurement that we took, and the barometric pressure is all basically being subtracted from that. So the output of that, of course, is water level in feet.
Got to unmute myself. Excellent. So we had a question here regarding dew point, and how do we get dew point? And with any of our loggers that record both temperature and humidity, the software is going to automatically give you the option to plot dew point. And this will lead me into a couple other things here. So if I open up, I believe this one should work. So when you open up your file here, you can see that dew point is not selected, but you can plot that there. So we'll just go ahead and open that up. And now you'll see you're going to have temperature, humidity, and dew point. Now there's a good.
Also take note that Scott's rule change took place here too. Notice the both left and right hand side, the percentage RH and the degrees Fahrenheit. So now he put that 0 to 100 boundary in there. So now they took place on the next plot.
There we go. Perfect. So there's a couple things you can do right here within the graph. We've got some of our tools up here at the top. So if you're looking to zoom in, you can come in and draw a box around a particular section. You can, I like to use this crosshair tool because what it's going to do is drop in a red line here. But the cool thing is that it drops you down into your data set. So if you want to see what a particular point is in time, it's going to show it to you both here in the table view as well as over here in your legend. Now, another way to zoom in on data, that's more ad hoc using the eyeglass tool, but you can double click on the bottom axis and set exactly, let's say I want to look at a week's worth of data. I guess I got to go into February. We'll say that. And then you can hit apply, and it'll show you that time frame that you're looking at. The other thing you can do is kind of grab the hand tool, and then you can start to move yourself along the bottom here, and then just go wee. So couple different ways to be able to look at the data as you're going along here. But this leads me back to the original reason why I opened this, was because I've got a bunch of files here, and I know that a few of you have made reference to having the same thing where you go back potentially, years here to, and want to be able to stitch these things together. So one of the things that you can do is use our merge tool, merge data files. And what I'm going to do here is grab some of these other files. Now you're going to hold down the control key to collect multiple files, and then we hit open. Now what it's going to tell me to do is, do I want to merge these into the existing serial number? And so doing this is basically going to put everything into one column. So we'll go ahead and do that one as well as the second one, and then we hit plot. As you can see here, I must be missing a little bit of data from, that must be in one of the other files that I have here, but what this has done is now stitched together those three data sets all into one graph here. There's another way you can do this too, by copying and pasting, but when you do that, that'll actually create a new column. So if you want everything into one column, I definitely recommend using the merge functionality.
Scott, do you want to show the copy and paste function just so people?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see here. We'll go ahead and do that just so y'all can see that that can happen as well. And the best way to go about that is to actually open up that additional file. So we'll go ahead and go into, we'll just grab any one of these, and we'll try this one. And all I'm doing is double clicking. I'm going to just plot the temp and RH. And now we have that data set there. And what we want to do is take the data from this file, so outside house 123.108, and put it over to outside house 802.09. So with this type of thing, you need to do it basically one at a time, so one series at a time. So let's go ahead. We can start here. Right click, copy series RH. Go ahead, then move over to the first tab, which is the destination file. Right click anywhere on the graph, and we'll go ahead and select paste series. It looks like I put it there in the beginning. And then we can go back and grab the other series, same idea. So right click, first highlight, then right click. You can highlight just by left clicking and then hit copy series temp. Going back to the destination file, right click, paste series, and then it's all there. So basically what we just put that in is on the very beginning of this file. I'll zoom in just so you can kind of see what we added. Basically this piece right here.
Now that's a good way to, hey, can you, that's a good way to, if you're bringing in data sets from multiple different types of loggers. We had a question earlier, somebody who's working with microstations and water level loggers, and how do you bring that into one graph? So that's a way that you can do that is copy and paste. The merge functionality is more or less for if you want to do all of the same file. However, there is one more piece to the merge functionality that is useful. And so I'm going to grab some files here from, I got it. So I'm going to grab these files. Now, they're not a part of this particular logger. So what you can actually do is go to no series on these. And when you do this, I guess I got to do that too. What this will do is create the new columns for you. So this is kind of maybe a quicker way of copying and pasting. And then you hit plot. And as you can see, I guess my time frame's all out here, but it added all these new columns into the software here. So a couple different ways to sort of manipulate your data, especially those of you who've been, got hundreds of files, that you need to put together for a presentation or something like that. Which actually leads me into the next question is, how do I get a good screenshot of the graph, and how do I get that into whether that's Word, PowerPoint, or some sort of presentation?
I can help up with that. Yeah, great question, and this is basically how I recommend it. So first, select your arrow tool up here. That's actually one good thing. One thing we should mention too is you do have a different number of tools up here that you can choose from. So right now we'll grab the arrow tool. Right-click here, and we actually put this section here, or copy graph to clipboard. And what that does is basically gives you an image of this particular graph. Go ahead and do that. This is actually a pretty decent, pretty good sized graph here. Quite a bit of stuff going on. So I've got a Word document open here. Yep. Let me just go ahead and get new. Blank document. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and paste that in here. So imagine this could, if you've got something that you're already writing, you can just paste this right in here. So right-click, paste. And the nice thing about this is you have all the Windows sizing options here. So if it's too small, you can stretch it out. It's too big, you can shrink it down. You can rotate it if you really want to. All that kind of stuff here. So that's a good tool to use. A lot of folks that I speak with, they also use the Windows snipping tool, which comes standard with Windows 7, 8, and 10. So that's another function. You could definitely do that if you want, but we already have that kind of set up there for you. So.
Yeah, no, perfect. We clearly beat Windows to the punch. So. I actually got another one here for you, Mike. Could you take us through the growing degree days?
Yeah, sure, no doubt. Let's go ahead and open up a file that would get us there. Outside's a good one, so any old file here would, let's see here. We just need temp. All right, so go ahead and open this. So here, same kind of thing as we saw before. We have that these data assistants down the bottom, and again, HOBOware Pro required for this. So let's go ahead and set that up. We have several different models that you can choose from here. It's really up to you and the particular growing degree model that you're trying to accomplish or track here. It could be, if you're an entomologist, it might be one thing. If you're a grower, it might be something else. So I would just maybe try to figure out which one works best for you. And the good news is you can do it 100 times to figure out where you need to be. So for now, for ease of this demo, we'll just choose the average method. With this method, you get both lower and upper thresholds. So this is in Fahrenheit, so lower 20 degrees might be unrealistic for some things. So we'll do something like 50, not 501, 50 works. And we'll do an upper threshold, whatever we're trying to model here, maybe 90 is the upper threshold. And there are some other things that you can do. These are basically going to add some events into your file here. We'll just keep that at 200, the biofix date. And let's just see here. Let's go ahead and create new series. And for our purposes, maybe we're only interested in the temperature and growing degree days. You'll notice how as temperature goes up, how that kind of tracks. Go ahead and plot that. So this is really neat. We're going to see this, basically our growing degree day count go up as time goes on. And notice how as the temperature increases, so does our growing degree day acceleration along with that. So definitely a great tool for growers, entomologists, whatever you're trying to model. This is a great tool to help you figure it out.
Cool, thanks, Mike. So it looks like we've got some folks who've been with us for a while, so thank you again. But a lot of you have some older software, it sounds like, and potentially some older products as well. So for those of you who have had earlier versions of HOBOware, yeah, you should be able to go ahead and just update those without deleting the software.
Yeah, so actually, and this is a great question. If you have an older version of software, and for some reason you were able to install it on a new version of new version of Windows, we didn't over time do some directory changes, so there may be some issues with installations there. But easy enough. If you run into any of those types of situations, give tech support a call. We're always more than willing to help guide you through that. Worst case scenario, a fresh install with the downloaded version will help. So, by the way, if you purchased the HOBOware Pro version back then, you're still eligible for the HOBOware Pro version now. So if you have any trouble with that, whether it be licensing or anything like that, just give us a call. We can set you straight.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And for those of you who still remember something called Boxcar, and who might still be using some of the loggers that were compatible with Boxcar, HOBOware does not run in terms of being able to configure and start those older loggers. Basically, it's only the USB loggers moving forward. But if you do have some of your, what we used to call a DTF file, a data file from Boxcar, you can actually open that up in HOBOware and take advantage of all the tools that we have in here. So there was another question that came across, and we don't want that. And this actually, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer this correctly. Is there a way to track fluctuations in temperature and RH for downloaded data? So one of the things that you can do, and actually this graph kind of highlights it here, is that you can drop in what we call alarm sort of points. So as you can see with the red going across here, so I don't know if you're looking for a specific window to kind of see when the temperature or the humidity has gone outside of a particular range. Yeah, that's another way to do it too. So I'll show you this first, where I believe it's under properties, right? We go to where's the properties? Graph properties, and at this point you can put in a high and a low threshold. So what am I sitting at here? We'll just do something like this, and basically what this can do is kind of apply a window here. So if you're looking to see if everything is kind of within that range, that might be a good way to take a look at it. And then Mike has another way to potentially look at this as well.
Yeah, sure. Actually, just pointing out another tool here that we have up in the top bar. This is the subset statistic tool. If you can say it 3 times fast, good job. Basically, this just kind of gives you some extra visibility into a set of data. And like as Scott was saying, you can, if you're choosing a particular band or span of time within a graph. So this might help you with some of that type of things. Let me just see. I believe Yeah, so I'm wondering, and the reason why I brought this up is because I'm wondering if in part, maybe the question was standard deviation. So is that possible? So you can get a sense of that with this tool. And for example, we can stretch it across the entire file or most of it and get our standard deviation here. So that may help, if you're looking for that type of thing.
So while we're kind of still on this topic here, and I guess we'll just continue using this data file. Now, I can see where the question's coming from. So what if I started my logger and I have some garbage data beforehand, and I want to kind of get it out of my data set? Now, what I typically recommend is if you're starting a bunch of loggers, you maybe choose, configure it for a delayed start, sometime in the future by the date and time. But if you do have some garbage data, let's say that you're taking these out in your backpack, and you don't want to look at that data. Is there a way to get the data sort of out of my data set here, so I can really work with just the data that applies to me?
So yeah, what Scott is referring to here is the crop series. Great tool, yeah. Actually, just to make sure everybody's paying attention. So again, selecting the arrow tool, right-clicking on the graph, crop series. You'll see that right in the drop-down. Now here we have we can select some of them, all of them, and then what we're doing really here is setting a new bound, right? So these bounds have to be, basically sooner from the beginning, or basically after or closer, I guess I would say, from the end, right? So basically, you're going to narrow this down, but definitely possible. We have a lot of folks that deploy. They may launch the logger in the office and then walk out to the field, not knowing that the logger is taking data at the time. So if you can imagine, the beginning of that file might be useless, right? So they might say, okay, let's knock off a couple of days here. So let's, instead of starting at January 1st, let's go ahead and start on Monday, January 5th. We can leave the time there. And also, we picked it up on August 15th, not September 1st. So let's go ahead and we'll knock that back to August 15th. That was on a Saturday. So we'll go ahead and so now we've got our time set and we know this is there. We want to crop out all of these series. Hit crop, and we'll notice here the best way to see this is a rather large file, so it's tough to see with the graph, but notice now the file starts on January 5th and likely ends on, sorry guys, just wanted to get this. Okay, yeah, so we were plotting past August. We were plotting into September, but we can actually do that again to get it down. Let's say it was July 15th, crop series. Our view was into September, so that's why that happened. There we go. So now, I just have to get around that window. Yeah, so July 15th now. So yeah, great feature for folks that are, that have data on either side, that are that just data that's no good. You can also use this if you wanted to split the file in half. You could do the same thing, plot the same file twice, and then cut one half, save the later half in one file, and then save the beginning half in another file. Some folks might need to do that for certain reasons. So.
Cool. We had another question here, and this kind of relates to what we may have already shown you with the copy and paste and the merge functionality, but it's how to combine data files from multiple loggers with different logging intervals in HOBOware to create one CSV. Now, one of the nice things that HOBOware actually does, I think, much better than dealing with this in Excel, is basically it's just going to take whatever you have here and jam it all in. So I'm not sure if my time frames are going to be exactly correct here, but what we can do is just open up another file. And we're going to open up another file. This is why we don't do demos, right? So we'll go ahead and plot this sort of stuff here. And oh, there it was. I just wasn't patient enough. Sometimes you need to be a little patient. That's one of the things too, is we have so many things going on in this right now. But again, you can just take this and you can copy it and then paste it. And my time frames are probably going to be way off. But if you did have the same time frames, yeah, way off, way over here. So, but that is a way. And then when it comes to exporting, it's called exporting table data. And it's set up my preference. And again, if you don't want to select some of this stuff, you can uncheck it here. If you actually need to update your preferences, you can get over to preferences and see, okay, this is exactly how I want my data being exported. And then finally, you can hit export. Now, this is one of the key things, and Mike and I were talking about this a little earlier. It's data management. One of the things you need to do is remember where you put stuff. Believe it or not, I've done this multiple times where you just hit save and you don't know where it's saved to. So you know what, HOBOware is sticky. So from the sense that if I export and save this to the desktop, next time it is going to take me back to the desktop again. So if you have a main folder where you want to save all of your things, I definitely recommend you know, choosing one thing and then kind of going from there. This isn't going to let me open it up in Word, but anyways, you get the idea of how the data can be exported and then brought into either Notepad or Excel or things along those lines. Let's see what else. Do you want to touch any more on the?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and I get that question a lot. You know, what's the best method of saving data? You know, it definitely is a you know, whatever your preference might be. I personally do mine by month, so when I'm offloading data from data loggers, I keep track by time. But the reason for that is my project is basically my career here at Onset, so it's been going on for 15 years now. So I keep that going by month. So for those that are doing projects, and they may have a particular project name, that's another great way of keeping track of those data files by project name, and then perhaps a subfolder directory within that for time, or whether it be monthly or weekly. So certainly something that you're comfortable with, and as long as you're consistent with it, that's basically what we would recommend.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of give the 10-minute warning here as we're kind of coming up towards the end of this. So if you have any other questions in here, please fire those off. Paul, I saw your question. We'll follow up with you afterwards. Nick, I'm going to do the same thing because I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. So, you know, for those of you who are asking maybe a little more detailed questions that may have to do with loggers and software, we'll certainly follow up with you there. But Mike was just talking about projects, which I brought us back to this main data file that we've gone through and we've mucked with it now, and we've made it exactly the way we like it with this big black and blue mess going on that we have here. But I'm gonna have Mike, what do we do once we've gotten this to a point? What's the next step so I don't have to put all these files back together again?
Great question. So we talk to folks about this a lot as well. So you know, we've utilized a lot of the tools in HOBOware. We don't want to lose that work that we've done. So we have to save this particular file. So we go ahead and save this as a project. So go up to your File menu, and then go down to Save Project. Now this is a different file format. So before we were working with the .hobo files. That's our own basically binary type file. HOBOware knows how to handle it. The project file is a totally different format, and one thing we don't allow you to do, and it just keeps, it speaks to the integrity of the data. So we don't allow you to save in the raw HOBO format. So we save in this project format. So easy enough, right? We're going to keep that the same name here, .hprog or proj. We'll just go ahead and save that to the desktop is fine. And really that's all we do. So again, keep in mind, use whatever directories that you've created and whatever, whatever methods you have in place to capture this data. And some folks may even keep projects files separate from the raw data. Whatever way is fine as long as you're consistent. And then beyond that, I think we've already talked about exporting. That would be one other thing to do here would be the export. And we can click on there's actually a quick button on the top toolbar there, export table data. That's the same thing that Scott was showing earlier. So we can get there from there too.
Actually, what I'll do is I realized that I didn't save some of the preferences here that I did before.
I think that was my fault, Scott. I went to classic.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So there's that's always make sure you just take a look at what you're doing here and hit OK, and then again we'll export it, and now it saves it as the XLS file, and as you can see, it was sticky back to the desktop there. So. A couple more things I wanted to touch on here, something actually I used the other day because I was trying to point out some issues like my daughter leaving the lights on in the house. And sometimes the graph can be very powerful, and then you can also tell them, you can calculate the energy and tell them that you're going to start charging them, and it'll go against them on their monthly allowance there. So
how'd that work out, Scott?
Well, it didn't go as well as I would have liked, but one of the things here, and I'm just going to open up what we call an on-off data file, and this is a motor logger. So basically it's showing the runtime of a motor. But again, these are some of the things that you can do is come in and do the filter. The filter is going to be a little different here, where this will actually calculate the percent on, percent off, total time on, total time off, and then the different changes there. And you can do that over a particular time. The other data file set that I don't think I have here right now is to do the pulses or a count or something like rain, where it will then totalize over a period of time for you. And if we just the graph really isn't that exciting because it's just one data point over a day. But as you can see here, it creates this new total and gives us the percent on time here. Now, the other thing that I also used was you can create a label, and you can say daughter left on, and where did that put my label? Where'd it go? Huh. Where is it on this? When demos don't work. View properties. All right, well, I'm gonna bail out on this file, and I'm just gonna grab another one here. Yeah, that's a little weird. I think we just stumbled across something here. We're gonna have to write that one up. See, sometimes you find things as you're going along here. So what we'll do is you can just click on this, and then you can add a label, add a graph label, and you can basically type it in here. You can attach it to a series. You can change the font and the size of it, and we hit done, and basically this will show here. So if you're trying to do any highlights right within here, I know a lot of times folks will do what we did before and grab that data and bring it out of, and then bring it into a PowerPoint, and then from there, you know, add in arrows and all that sort of stuff. But this is something that you can do right within HOBOware.
And this and these labels will come over with the copy graph to clipboard, which we covered earlier. So you could do all of that labeling here in HOBOware, then bring it over to your document.
All right, so I'm going to set Mike up here, and there's a little bit. So before I do that, folks have been asking, what about help? If you click on the question mark here, there's actually a fantastic HOBOware help file here, and you can come in and you can search for terms like import, and it will bring you to things like import text file requirements. And at this point, I'm going to kind of turn this over to Mike here for a minute, because we've got some questions in terms of what data can we bring in, and how do I bring in non-HOBO data?
Gotcha. So actually, we landed right on the exact page that we would refer to. So these are the parameters that HOBOware will support. Now, for example, a lot of times folks are importing temperature data, so no problem at all. So that temperature data can be from a logger that we don't even manufacture. The only thing we need to see is it in the proper format, and HOBOware is pretty strict with this. So certainly, if you look down towards, and I'll see if I can get the mouse over here. That's right. And so basically, this format down here. So temperature. This is the measurement type. The column header basically should say temperature or temp. And then we support the two units of measure here. So that data can come from any data logger. It could come from an older weather station, whatever it might be. The same thing that goes with relative humidity, again, from another data logger. It doesn't matter. As long as that column header, as long as that's labeled correctly, HOBOware can take it in. As far as you know, some things that you don't see here, for example, if whatever the measurement might be, that if it's not supported here, there are some ways that folks will trick that. They might just label a temperature and then later on in HOBOware label that with something different. But that's one way folks have got around getting data from measurements that we don't support on the import into our software.
Cool, thanks, Mike. We've had a couple questions that came in before and during this for that as well. And I guess just one more point that Mike actually touched on is you can come in and select some of these, and then a lot of times if you're looking for things, I recommend that you click on something and then right-click on it, and you'll see new things that kind of come up. Even when you're in the graph and you highlight and you right-click on one of these things, you can put in the view properties. Oops. You do have to have it highlighted. And to Mike's point here is if you bring it in as temperature data, and I know this isn't a clean way to do it for whatever reason, our developers, we never got to the point where you could bring in generic data. But if you wanted to bring in whatever you had, and we can call these units of monkeys, and in I don't know, bananas, and and then you can hit done. So at that point, it's going to change your heading up here, so you can tell that you're now recording 45 monkey bananas. So
if you're importing monkeys, then this is how to do it.
So yeah, so that's a way. I know it's a little bit of a hack, but again, sometimes it's easier than trying to do any of this sort of stuff in Excel. I mean, Excel can really be powerful, but the flip side of that is you get too much stuff in there and it kind of blows up from time to time. So yeah, so that's kind of I think we've hit on most of the questions here. As I said, Paul and Nick, we're going to follow up with you guys afterwards. And if we missed anybody else, I apologize, but we will certainly go through all the questions after this and just make sure that we got everybody covered. And if we didn't get you, we'll certainly follow up with you. So yeah, at this point, I want to say thank you very much. We've had a number of you that stayed on the line for us. Thank you again. And
yep. Thanks, everybody.
All right, have a great day. We'll catch you probably in the first quarter. We'll take a look at doing this again. Thanks all.